Good afternoon, America, the greatest country on earth where hope springs eternal. Today's podcast is discussing the movie Sheepdog, a powerful drama written, produced by, and starring our special guest today, Steven Grayhm. It follows a decorated U.S. Army combat veteran who is struggling with trauma, reintegration into civilian life, court-ordered treatment, family tensions, and ultimately post-traumatic stress growth. The film emphasizes healing, redemption, and community support rather than combat scenes. Steven spent over 14 years researching, interviewing, and putting together this movie. He wore so many hats and invested so much personally in the project, and we're very excited to have him on to discuss everything about it and his real life inspiration and how it has evolved his thinking on how we treat our veterans. And with that, let's welcome Steven Grayhm.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate y'all.
So Steven, as I mentioned, it took 14 years to bring this story to the big screen. I know you probably are tired of explaining the whole behind the scenes story
never.
of what.
No.
So why don't you tell us how this movie came into being?
Sure. So in 2011, my car broke down 3 hours north of Los Angeles. I was shooting a film in Vancouver, Canada, as an actor, and I drove through the night back home to Los Angeles, and car breaks down. Call AAA. They send out the local tow truck driver, and he arrives and he's like, "All right, saddle up, partner. We got a long haul into town." And it was during that drive back home with him that he began to open up about all the challenges in his life, struggles he was having in his marriage, challenges of being the father of three, financial hardship. And then he opened up about all the various medications that he was on through the VA that were tethered to his traumatic brain injury and his post-traumatic stress from his multiple deployments overseas. And I honestly don't think I said 3 words during that drive into town. And throughout this conversation, he kept saying to me, "I can't believe I'm telling you this. I've never told my wife this. I've never told a therapist this." I get back to Los Angeles. I thank him for getting me home safe. And I looked into his eyes, and I was pretty sure I'd never see him again. And he was probably wanted it that way. And that was the seminal moment. That truly lit the spark, that it wasn't just a sense of curiosity, it was a sense of responsibility, because I was left with this feeling of this gentleman that had served his country honorably, and yet he felt so disconnected in his human experience, disconnected from his community, from his battle buddies, from his own family, and he was suffering in silence. And so that summer of 2011, I embarked on a nationwide road trip to meet with veterans and mental health professionals to try to uncover the truth, to see if there were more men and women like this tow truck driver that perhaps were suffering in silence. And I wanted to get to the bottom of that as to why. And that lit the spark for the foundation of Sheepdog, the movie.
So in your journey there, where you were interviewing all these different people, did you find that this tow truck driver's story was more common than you maybe thought when you first heard it?
Unfortunately, yes. And it was a truly staggering process of uncovering all these folks' stories. I mean, first off, it's worth sharing that it took a lot of time, understandably, for folks to trust myself and my co-star in the film, Matt Dallas, because I wrote the screenplay, but he joined me on this first road trip of many. And yeah, the first veteran that we met with after that experience was in McAllen, Texas, retired Staff Sergeant George Rice. And we went into it very idealistic, and we'd set up cameras, and you would have a nice warm chat, and that would kind of be the extent of it. But it was in that first initial interview where I shut the cameras off, and as we were packing up to go, he said, so you're going to be the screenwriter. And I said, well, I don't know that it's a screenplay yet. I'm just journaling. I just want to understand what's going on. And that's when he opened up to me about this military mission that he was a part of, that his unit was a part of, that kind of went sideways on his guys, where they lost 3 men that were KIA. And he took off his in memoriam band with the 3 names of those gentlemen, and he held it out to me, and he just said, don't let me down. And it took the wind out of my lungs, and he was just like, don't let me down. I got back in the car with Matt, and we had to make a decision, because we knew we had bit off more than we could chew. And we either go back to Los Angeles and call it a day, or we soldier on. And we decided in that moment to complete the mission or die trying, never knowing that it was going to be 14 years later to bring all these folks that we would later meet with, bring their stories to the screen so they could feel seen and heard.
Yeah, I mean, your story of your journey is very familiar to me, and sort of the journey that I embarked on 17 years ago when I was contacted by the VA to set up adaptive sports programs, and then you start meeting these folks, and it's pretty remarkable what they will tell you. And I can't even tell you how many times someone told me, I've never told my family, I've never told my wife, I've never told my husband, my parents, whatever, and they reach out. So as you're interviewing these soldiers, and you mentioned the prescription drugs, and that's something that we talk a lot about in our program. Were you surprised, and what were the numbers, just generally speaking, would you say was the ballpark average, the number of prescription drugs that these guys were on?
Oh, from the sublime to the grotesque. I mean, I honestly could not. I mean, there were folks I met with that could literally text and get the medication to the house. And I want to be careful, like, because not having a medical background, I'm only going to share what I saw firsthand, just so anyone listening or watching will understand that. So I had seen where medication was like genuinely working in folks' lives, and I'd also seen where it had numbed them out to a point. Because if we want to get into numbers, I mean, I sat in front of people that were maybe on 17 different medications, and you marvel at how the body can even handle that. But I would share this as like an anecdote from the road. I remember in 2014, 15, meeting a veteran. He had 2 kids. He was pretty young, and God knows he was on a pretty intense cocktail of drugs. And he came up to visit us. I was in Texas at the time, so he drove 2 or 3 hours, and he stayed with a group of us. I was the civilian, and there was a group of vets, and he was off the meds that week for nearly 2 weeks. And in that time period, we saw the light return in his eyes. We saw him return to self. And I'm not saying that that's safe, because he could be on these medications for a specific reason. What I'm saying to you was that he was able to feel and think in a way. Mind you, he was in an environment that was extremely supportive. And you walk out your door into the world, and it might not feel that way. But yeah, we deal with that in the film in Sheepdog, and I wanted to be careful that to show it, but to also respect that for some folks, there's a high efficacy rate in the medications that they're getting, and it does work. And obviously, in the film, we go into various therapies, which I'm happy to discuss with you of what we show in the film.
No, we're going to get into that. Before we do, though, I just on a personal note,
Sure.
What was it like as the writer, director, producer, actor to direct yourself?
Yeah. So, when it came down to actually making the film, when we didn't have a lot of money to make it, you're forced to act on instinct. And, I think leading up to it, you sort of have that imposter syndrome of, how am I going to pull this off? Because, filmmaking is very technical. You map out all your shots, your shot list, what lenses you're going to use. You try to remain flexible and malleable when you actually shoot the movie. But the actual directing of yourself, the first step was I had to surround myself with actors that knew how high the stakes were. And Virginia Madsen, she's an Academy Award nominee. She plays my trauma therapist. She's a Gold Star family member. Vondie Curtis-Hall plays a Vietnam veteran, and my father-in-law in the film. He grew up in the Vietnam era in Detroit, had many friends that were drafted, some that volunteered, some that didn't come home, some that returned with PTS, some that currently are battling cancer from exposure to Agent Orange. Lily Cooper, she's a Tony nominee. She comes from a family of grandparents are veterans. Matt Dallas, as I said, plays my best friend in the film. He did the research with me. Dominic Famusa plays our civilian, former hockey coach turned first responder, and he did a lot of work with Adam Driver, who's a Marine and also an actor, in his foundation. And so everybody came to it knowing just how high the stakes were. So my job at that point, outside the technical aspect of directing a movie, was to trust the words I'd spent so many years refining on the page and just go for it. And I give a lot of credit to my cinematographer, Evans Browns, who's a very seasoned cinematographer, and he was the last voice that I typically would hear before I would step in front of the camera. And it was lightning in a bottle, and never be able to recreate that again. It just all came together in a very high pressured situation. So to answer your question, I never went off into the corner and was like, gosh, what would Calvin do in this moment? I just acted on instinct, and that's the performance you see. All the stories that were told over the years were just intrinsically inside of you, a part of who you are.
No, I totally understand that. And the cast is for a small independent film, being able to pull together the cast that you did is pretty remarkable. And friends of our program know Dominic very well. When he did the movie 13 Hours in Benghazi,
Yep.
we had worked with those contractors that were on the roof that night, and I knew them personally, and was lucky enough to get invited to a screening and met Dominic, and so just an unbelievable guy, and so being able to pull that
he was
cast
tremendous
together.
in the film. Yeah, he really was. He was tremendous, and he shared a lot about his experience doing 13 Hours and how much that meant to him playing the real life survivor, Teague, who lives in Colorado Springs, and they've stayed in touch all these years since they made the movie. And that's just a testament to the power of that story and the courage under fire, as they say, for such an unfortunate situation.
Yeah, there's a term in the military. Maybe Jim will I'll let him throw him a softball on it. But when you survive the most toughest situation, that bond that you get from working with those people, it does last a lifetime. And speaking of which, we have been joined now by Jim Zenner. He is the LA County Director of Military and Veterans, and he is one of the brains behind the VPAN system, which is a peer support network, started in LA County and has been, through Jim's efforts, replicated in other counties across America. So Jim, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, John. As John said, Jim Zenner, former Army. I served 04 to 08 active duty, and then 08 to 2011 reserves. I was 27 when I joined, and saw the war in Iraq broke out, and felt I needed to do my part. The other piece was I wanted to get an education. So one of the best decision professionally in my entire life. I got so much out of the Army, way more than they got out of me. Met a lot of great, I say guys because I was in a combat arms unit. Met a lot of great guys while I was in, and really kind of inspired me to do what I do today. So you mentioned the Veteran Peer Access Network, John. That's been just like a long time coming. We had the vet centers back in the 70s that was founded by by a Vietnam vet named Shad Mishad and a few others. And, that started off like going to veterans, like where they're at and connecting with them. And now what we have with the vet center is kind of an extension of the VA. It's not what it used to be, unfortunately. And, here in LA County, we saw the need of being out where the veterans are, connecting with them and providing that camaraderie and that peer support, and not having it feel like a program. We tell our staff that's contracted through community-based organizations, like, just go be a veteran. Don't go be a VPAN person. Just go be a veteran. And you hear somebody struggling at your team red, white, and blue run that you're doing, or, a bowling event, that your city put on for veterans or something like that, and just engage organically. Like the whole point of this program is to not feel like a program, not feel like, our fellow veterans are coming to us because they're broken, or they can't accomplish it on their own. They just need, another veteran to kind of just talk things through with and get back on their feet. So that's been a lot of fun. You did mention other counties. Actually, we're the only county that has this program, John. It's really other states. So you look at Texas Veteran Commission, they got about 53 peers across the entire state of Texas. We got 45 in LA County alone. Our county has invested in a way that no other county has. And actually, to be honest, no other state has. We have more peer support that are funded through the county per capita than any other geographic location across the country. And so that's one of the many reasons why I'm proud to work at LA County. I could be working at a bunch of other different places, but I choose here because LA County is investing in vets in a way that we want to be invested in. So, Steven, good to see you again. I met Steven.
I was just gonna say, I was like, what are we post 309?
Yeah. So Steven and I met at the American Legion Post 309 event. He got introduced to me by a bunch of sheriff deputies who are veterans who I have a lot of admiration for. When I was thinking, social work, psychology or law enforcement. And I was really leaning towards law enforcement. And then I found myself in Iraq, saw some of the crap that was going on. And I was just thinking, like, man, if I'm law enforcement, I gotta live where I'm, kind of seeing some of the worst that humanity has to bring at times. I mean, obviously that's, not the whole job, but that's a piece of the job. And I was just like, you know what, like, I'm going to tap out. I'm going to go social work and help people. And so, the folks that put on the uniform, deploy to a combat zone and come back and continue to serve in law enforcement. I mean, when somebody refers me, when a law enforcement veteran refers somebody to me, I pay attention. So Steven, it's great to see you again. And we all had a great time that night, including our spouses. And then also that Gold Star member, Vanessa Jimenez, good friend of mine, whose father passed away in Iraq. I still haven't seen the film, man. I got to be honest with you.
We gotta make sure that you do, because we were just talking about you yesterday, Matt and I, on one of our team calls. And Matt said that after we had shown the trailer at Star Post 309 at their Salute to Heroes, you turned to him and you said, we have a lot of work to do. And Matt, that really stuck with him. And we appreciate that. And we appreciate your commitment to service and sacrifice, Jim. So thank you.
Yeah, you bet. I mean, what I meant by that is, during COVID, we had about before COVID, I mean, we had about 96 veterans dying by suicide in LA County. Since 2020, we're averaging around 78. Obviously, one is too many, but 78, we have a long ways to go. I mean, we have the Veteran Suicide Review Team, only county in the state that has this. The Governor Newsom got on board several years ago with the Governor's Challenge and Veteran Suicide. We're sharing everything we've been doing in LA County with the state to kind of get them up to speed and work closely with them to not just, have an impact here in LA County, but we all got friends living across the state. So big focus on our end. And then homelessness, we're down to like 2,000 veterans experiencing homelessness from 8,000 when I started as a social worker in 2010. 2,000 is too many, still working on that. And then one of the biggest things that I'm seeing us have make movements here in LA County is really around justice involved vets. Some veterans, we all kind of own our actions that bring us into the justice system. But for many of the veterans, it's just untreated, trauma or substance use or related to service, or maybe it is treated, but it's being treated in the wrong way. I heard you guys talking about medications. I got stories for days. I started my career running Hollywood Veteran Center, 48 beds for Iraq, Afghanistan vets. Many of them, John, participated in your biking program way back in the day, spoke highly of it. It's just not being treated the right way. Medication is not something that veterans gravitate towards. Traditional therapy, not something that veterans have been gravitating towards as well. I've benefited from both, but my job is to listen to the overall veteran population and represent them. And what I hear from the larger population is a lot of times those don't work, or they don't want those type of approaches, and they would rather go biking with their buddies and have like an hour or two afterwards, or like Merging Vets and Players, another good organization that merges athletes and veterans together to combat vets together to work out and then kind of share similarities. And so that's really kind of my focus, is really kind of looking at all alternative options that veterans want to go and get help from. And we do have a partnership with the Reality Center. I don't know if you've heard of them, John, Steven, great organization out of Santa Monica, ran by a Marine Corps vet. It's a non-pharmacological approach. It's sensory. It's sensory based. So they put you on a table. There's tactile sensory stimulation. There's auditorial. So you got these earphones on, and then visual. So it's like lights, and it's like inducing a psychedelic experience without taking psychedelic medication. And I've gone through it a couple of times myself, and you walk in and then you walk out 45 minutes later and you're just feeling a lot more calm, and you don't feel like you're coming out of your skin like a lot of vets and other trauma survivors outside of veterans kind of get to, that make it difficult to cope with life stresses when you're kind of in that spot. So some others that we're looking at, there's a hyperbaric chamber that I've heard a lot of vets talk a lot about. MRT, magnetic resonance therapy, where it's it's non-medicinal. The latest one that I've kind of checked out and I've paid myself to go to a couple times, and I'm going to keep using this for myself, is sensory deprivation through a tank. You lay in a tank, and no sensory stimulation at all. You're just floating in water, and you get out, and I feel like I'm back in my body. I'm aware of everything.
Have you had a chance to? I don't know if I've ever sent you the documentary that the Discovery Channel did on my program, but it was right after COVID. Discovery Channel did a documentary looking at some of the alternative therapies that we got into. So we were doing like brain mapping with QEEG, we were doing hyperbarics, red light, infrared sauna, neurofeedback, and sensory deprivation is one of them. And I'll send it to you guys so you guys can check it out. But we actually did a research study with Wake Forest, and the results were phenomenal. And we're working on a major project that I won't talk about necessarily at this moment, but more to follow. Steven, you had mentioned there was a line in the movie, and it kind of fits into this discussion. And the line, and I'll paraphrase because just for time, but it says, and I believe it's your character that said it, and it said, "Do you know what the VA has put me through?" So kind of talk about that, and that where that came from, and I think that line resonates with a lot of veterans.
Sure. So I married into a military family. I've both of my brother-in-laws are combat vets, OAF and OAF, and just to give you, I heard it a lot, but just from one of my brother-in-law's experience of when he finally was willing to access his VA care in Vermont, he had told me he's taking time off from work and he's waiting in the parking lot 3 hours for his appointment. He's got kids and daycare and this and that, and it that's just like tip of the iceberg. But no, the truth is that I was very fortunate. I walked into the VA Medical Center in Detroit on that first road trip, and I was able to build the trust of the folks there that are the decision makers. and they paired me with neurologists, neuropsychologists, trauma therapists, and I think over the years they saw my commitment, so I became sort of a fly on the wall. So I got to see the system for like it warts and all, and I got to hear all the genuine complaints from people that worked there, people that were patients there, but also I got to see all the triumphs, and I thought that was really important to tell in Sheepdog, to show that, to say like, look, like, and this is what I gathered from my research. It's one of the only systems we have, and there are 5 million veterans currently right now that have not accessed their care. And it's important to address that not every veteran has trauma. Certainly not every veteran has been deployed, but what we're trying to elevate and highlight is that those 5 million that are not accessing that care, it's also access to community. And I think that, again, I've seen all the broken parts of the system, but I've also seen folks coming to work every day that aren't getting rich doing it, that are genuinely making an impact on folks' life. I'll never forget standing in the cafeteria. So over the years, I turned like a broom closet, a custodian's broom closet, into my own little office there, and I was given access. I could sit in on sessions and really soak it all in. And I remember one day standing in the cafeteria with a corpsman who had saved 52 of 54 souls, and he was haunted by the 2 he couldn't save. And I remember him pointing across the cafeteria. He's 6'4" at this 4'9" trauma therapist, and he said, "That lady right there, that lady saved my life." And he opened up about how that came to be. And so that's like, from my experience in this, I do think even the programs that Jim are running that are essentially, without putting it into a box, it's an extension of that care and that focus, I think is really important. And I think that was what we were trying to show in the film, and be responsible about that, if that makes any sense, to not give you like, this isn't Disneyland. But there are many aspects of the VA that are working for folks. And there are people, it really comes down to the individual as well. The people that are showing up, they are essentially, in my opinion, that I learned from, sort of our final protective line, if not your own brotherhood or sisterhood. And if you're a veteran that's disconnected from that community and you don't have access to that community, I think that's what is partially contributing to those numbers of veteran suicide.
No, and I agree. I mean, I've been in this. I mean, the reason I'm doing what I do is because I got a call from the VA asking for help, and I responded to that call. And so there are a lot of great people that work at the VA. Part of the problem is it's so massive, and there's so much bureaucracy that the bureaucrats get in the way of the good clinicians to do their job. And we could have we don't have enough time today.
That's what it is. But how do we, like, look, we're having the conversation. How do we, and Jim, weigh in on this too? Like, that's my question to both of you. With that bureaucracy, and without getting in the weeds on this, like, that is a huge part of what I saw, right? So there's no simple answer, but what do you, in both of your collective opinion, what do you think is the best foot forward, if you could get in there?
So before Jim jumps in, I want to introduce a couple people that I think this topic really resonates with. The first one is Juan Alcivar. He is an Army veteran, and he joined our program in 2009. He was a soldier that was wounded, shot in the leg in Iraq. He was rehabbing at Walter Reed. And when I saw him, he weighed 360 pounds and was on 15 prescription drugs. The second person that I want to introduce is Dr. Larry Miller. His son, Mark, was in the Navy. He was a sniper attached to different special operations groups. And in April of last year, ended his life in front of the San Antonio VA as a protest for the care that he was receiving at the VA. So when it comes to the bureaucracy of the VA and things, these are two individuals that lived it. I mean, I'm sure that Jessica and Antonio also have some opinions on this, but Larry, I'll let you go first since you lost your son.
Well, first of all, thank you, Stephen, for putting this together. And this is much needed. And I think getting this information out to people is critical. And also thank you, James, for what you're doing out there for the veterans, because this is exactly what they need, to have participation with other veterans, and so they can have camaraderie and they can do all these other things. And we've looked at so many things. My son, Mark, first, after 15 years being a sniper in the Navy under really horrible situations, he tried to commit suicide in 2007. We rescued him. It's an amazing story in itself. We may we need a movie about that, Stephen. I'll send you the book and you can see what you think. But at any rate, after that, he did do a neuroplasticity and he got working with that. Seemed like he was pretty much cured. And after about 15 years, he got to the place where he could write about it. So he wrote this book, Suicide Stalks the Sniper. And during that time, we met with literally dozens and dozens of veteran groups giving talks around the country and meeting with so many veterans that had the same story that he did. His first attempt at suicide was caused by Prozac. He was depressed and they put him on Prozac, and he immediately had compulsion to commit suicide. It made him just feel that was the only way out, and he became very empowered to do it. So we got him off the drugs, and then this last year, I thought he was well, but he had some back pain. He went back to the VA for his back pain. They put him on opioids. And so he got hooked on the opioids. He started getting some from the outside as well, started drinking, and he became very depressed. And so on April 1st, he went back to the VA and told them, listen, I'm hooked on opioids. I'm very depressed. I'm suicidal. I need to be admitted to the hospital. And so after just 5 minutes of talking with the mental health people there, they gave him Seroquel and said, here, this is all you need, some Seroquel, and sent him home. And he texted me, look, Dad, I went in for help and they just gave me Seroquel. Look how nice they are. He says, they're killing our veterans. They didn't even listen to my story. They're murdering our men and women in the military. And he knew very well, because we'd had so many stories that we had picked up ourselves. 1 week later, I was out of the country, but I got a text from Mark, and he said, I love you very much, Dad, and I always will. 5 minutes later, he shot himself in the head at the VA hospital here in San Antonio, and I know exactly why he did it. He did it as a protest, the way they treated him. He speaks for the thousands of veterans that have been treated exactly the same way. He speaks for those who have been silenced. And you mentioned how good the VA is sometimes. Well, there are good people working at the VA, but here's what people don't see. Within the VA, there is a terribly, terribly broken system. That system is the psychiatrist. The psychiatrists have become nothing but drug dealers. Now, they used to take care of people, lay them on a couch, talk to them and find out what is the problem, talk them through the problems, help them devise ways to improve their life. But after the SSRIs came out and the psychotropics came out, they no longer have to spend hours with their patient anymore. They spend 5 minutes and they diagnose them as a mental illness. Well, isn't that great? You are upset because of what you've been through in Iraq. You have bad dreams. And they say, no, you have PTSD, you have bipolar. And because you're mentally ill, now you're stigmatized being mentally ill. We have to treat you as psychotropic drugs. And those drugs have been proven not to work any better than placebos. And that's once, I'll get to that in a second, and I'm almost done. But those drugs have been proven to increase suicide by 300%. And yet 70% of all veterans that go into VA hospital for depression get put on these psychedelic drugs that increase suicide. Can you believe that? It makes no sense, but they are controlled by Big Pharma. Big Pharma has convinced them that they are sick because of some kind of imbalance in the brain, which is nonsense. There's no such thing as imbalance in the brain. The last thing I'll say, I'll send you a study just produced by National Geographic, where they, for the first time, did a study of psychotropic drugs against placebo. You know, these were all approved by the FDA without comparing them to placebo. They just compared them to each other. So this is the first study that came out, a big study. And there was a gal in the study, and so half of them took placebos, the other half took SSRIs, and the doctors didn't know which was which, and the patients didn't know which was which. So they highlighted this one lady that said she was in horrible pain, had horrible depression, she was suicidal, her life was at an end. And so during this trial, she got better. And at the end of the trial, she said, "It's amazing, I'm back to normal. I have never felt so good in my life. All my pain is gone, my suicide's gone, I have purpose in life." When the results came out, she was in the placebo group. So the placebo is what helped her. And the placebos do have a powerful effect. And so we have to keep that in mind. But at any rate, I really appreciate you coming out with this. I think we have to point where the problem is at Big Pharma. We could get rid of 50% of all veteran suicides if we got them off these drugs. Talking about 17 drugs, I had a vet last month on 17 drugs here. I got him off from those, and he was suicidal. Now he woke up and he says, "Wow, where have I been for the last 10 years?" And and so this is a horrible problem within the VA. It's the psychiatrists that are causing the trouble. And the last thing is, you look at suicide rates in 2007, when my son first tried to commit suicide, and you look at the rates today, they have tripled. And the price, and they have tripled after they're spending more and more money to prevent suicide. They're getting worse and worse, and people don't want to look at the real reason. The real reason is these psychotropic drugs. Overprescription may be okay in some cases. So that's the answer to helping these veterans get their life back.
So in the movie, Steven, there's a famous scene in the movie where your character flushes his drugs down the toilet. So kind of talk through, like, how did that scene come about? And you can kind of see where it's related to the things that Larry's talking about, and also that Juan will talk about in a minute.
Just on mute there. So there was actually also a scene earlier in the film that didn't make the cut, just for the timing of the camera movement was too long. My character actually comes through the door, and he has a padded envelope, and he shakes it like a maraca, and it's a satisfying sound. It's all the pills that were sent to his house. And that is taken from an actual situation that I witnessed myself, of a veteran pulling a big package out of their mailbox and doing that. And it was all the pills that had been mailed to them, all the pharmaceuticals. And it hit me like a bolt of lightning. I just couldn't believe that it just, especially with guns in the house, children, it was just, it was overwhelming. So I put that in the film, and it didn't unfortunately make it in. But the throwing out of the drugs was because my character in that moment, I didn't want this to be a film to show a come down or somebody shaking in the corner from withdrawal and all that. The medications that my character were on, all the things that are listed when he's in front of a judge, was that he made a decision that his father-in-law was now allowing him to live in the house. And so it's a decision, for better or for worse, that he was willing to do that, and it was knee-jerk. And then he goes to see Virginia Madsen's character at the diner. And that is, the outcome of that scene with Virginia Madsen's character was him walking the tightrope of which way his life was going to go. But he was willing to, in that moment, get rid of all those medications, but I also show that he had them all over the house, as I witnessed, in my own research. But to that point, Juan, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, because I see you sort of nodding your head through some of this and what Larry had said of like what your experience, and thanks for joining us too.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for that film and making the film and doing the research. And, I think it's great to have media out there for people to see, explaining what we go through, explaining what veterans go through. And I think there's not that much out there being put out there. So thank you so much for doing that. I appreciate it. And I'm 100% all the veterans appreciate a movie like this, because we don't have that voice. And to have somebody like you to go and do the research and actually put real stuff, because you're saying this stuff and it's stuff that happened in my life. Like, I had 15 pills. I had them all over the house. It's me and my dog, and I'm here. And then this is his pill. I remember the day I was trying to commit suicide. I had all the pills there, and I'm about to take all of them, and I had them all laid out. I'm like, I'm gonna go through, and I'm gonna, in a sense, I was like Larry said, I was gonna defy the VA by taking the pills they gave me and showing them that you're killing me. And I was ready to lay that down to show them that, hey, you're killing me, and here's how you're doing it with all these pills. I had it all laid out in a sense. Luckily, I was able to talk with another veteran that actually took all of them away from me, took everything, and then we started the healing process of going through, our version of therapy, which is, hey, go to the gym. Hey, start doing bath water and ice baths and all this and that. So I understand completely what you guys are talking about with that. And Larry, I'm so sorry that you lost your son, and it hurts me to hear this, that he had to do this to bring awareness, because it shouldn't go all the way down to this to bring this awareness. It shouldn't take somebody losing their life to bring awareness to veterans losing their life, or just, in a sense, mental health. It should never come down to that. Never. And I just, it's crazy, because it's like the movie just feels like I'm living through that. And I feel when more veterans see it, they're going to see themselves in these characters. They see themselves in there. You can grab my face and put in a character. You can grab another person's face and put in those characters, because that's what they feel inside. And going through the VA and actually doing the research, and like you said, not just, a guy's shaking in the corner, and that line you said about, do I want to pick the pills, or do I want to pick like not doing the pills? It's that fork in the road where a lot of us veterans have to decide. When John came in, I could have said no and not done it and continued my life, and probably would have been done. But that moment where he said, hey, get on this bike and let's go. And then I didn't take any of my pills with me. And I just went on the bike ride, and I was in pain and everything. But you know what? We went through it, and it was a hard thing, and it was painful, but it was like a pain that you needed to go through. And I think that's where a lot of veterans and a lot of the psychologists don't understand, that veterans need to just go through. We need to go through this pain and these healing process, not mask it with all these pills, because it just feels like they're just masking it until one day we just pass away or commit suicide. And then it's like, okay, not our problem anymore. There's a lot of great people in the VA, but then there's a lot of people that are not great in the VA. So I think there's like an internal war within the VA that people want to push, but then there's a lot of red tape, because there's people that try to help me, but then it's like, oh, well, we can't because of this. So I completely understand your side and being in the VA, and I completely understand your side, Larry, in the sense of like losing a son, and now we gotta punch him in the face.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you for having the courage to share that. Yeah, I mean, there's a line in the film where my character says that, it's self-discovery. He says the only way out is through. And that's what you're talking about, getting on that bike, empowering through. And like, I'm not going to sit here as a civilian and wag a finger. Like, it's just so easy to find that strength and fortitude. But let's talk just in James weigh in. That's the connective tissue, right? If you're saying John got you up on that bike, that's the connective tissue in the community. And that's why, like, I went into rural communities, and just by geography, you're out in these rural communities, and your only connective tissue to the community that you served is maybe a Facebook group, right? And so you're out there, you're home alone, as you said, with your dog. Maybe you go to work, you come home, and you're stuck alone with your thoughts, and you don't have that. You don't, like, someone like John to go, let's go, let's get to work here. And so, James, like, you seem to have had great results in what you're doing in LA County, which is tremendous and amazing. And just really quickly, Larry, I also do want to say I'm so sorry for the loss of your son. What an incredible story in the journey that you've been on, and I'm sure your family. And I hope that certainly a film like ours can honor his memory and his legacy. And obviously, you have a fire in your belly to fight his fight, to continue to fight that. So thank you also for sharing that.
Thank you, Steven, for what you've done. You're a big ally, because my little voice doesn't do much, but your film is going to reach thousands and hundreds of thousands of people. And so I'm very grateful to you and proud of what you've done. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It was my honor and privilege. So James, on that note, like, with the results that you're seeing, because you had said earlier on in our chat here that you had both utilized medications at one point in your life, in your service, and then another time you're talking about all these different therapies. I know there's not a simple answer, but using getting up on that bike as a metaphor, like, what's your thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, I just advocate for options, right? Like, I have veterans that veterans that I respect a ton that telling me, like, hey, I did a ayahuasca retreat. I'm pronouncing that wrong, but like, I did a retreat.
Yeah. Ayahuasca.
There we go. Yeah, did one of those retreats, and it was like, it's what I needed. I could not access those experiences without my brain going into like emergency mode. So, something like that I would never do, but I'm not one that, I think the problem that we have is we close doors on options for vets. We're not listening to the people that we're supposed to be serving. And so as we have veterans saying, as we have, veterans saying, what works, and they have advocates like John that work with dozens and dozens of combat vets, like telling us, like, this is what we're hearing. Like, I mean, we got to listen. Like, let's stop closing doors. Like, let's stop, hiding behind research. Big pharma, like, don't.
Evidence-based. Everything has to be evidence-based. But how do you get the evidence if you don't do it?
Exactly, man. Yeah. I mean, we got to stop hiding behind that, and really just understand, like, it's going to take a lot of damn work, like, and we got to take a risk. And, that's what I hope to see, continue to see more on. I mean, we've all been seeing the VA slowly kind of open up to alternative, healing methods, and, moving in the right direction. I mean, to be honest with you, working in the VA system before, it takes a lot to move that boat. And so there are people inside that system that are really trying to make the change and push it, and I know, there's veteran advocacy groups, up there in DC, just trying to, continue the good fight. But they need, we need an awareness campaigns like this, and we need to keep talking about it and pushing it. Because
how do we get y'all in front of Congress? How do we, like, because there needs to be a bigger voice that's not just a civilian or a politician saying it. It's somebody who's lived it, has real life experience, that can speak to the evidence-based, like, the results. And I haven't seen that person, and I'm not being obtuse here. Like, I haven't seen that voice emerge. I know that there are certain folks, whether it's in the entertainment world, whether it's Jon Stewart or Gary Sinise, that have tried to advocate for certain things. But I'm talking about a combat veteran or a father like Larry, who's out there that has that story, that can say, listen, this is my life experience. This is my son's experience. Like, how do we move that needle to move the big boat, as you say?
That's what we're trying to do.
Go ahead, John.
No, I was going to say that's what we're trying to do with this podcast and with this program that we're doing with SOAR. And I was going to ask Jim, I go, so you mentioned, you're not going to move the VA boat, but what do you think about the idea that, instead of trying to fight the VA and get them to do these options or these alternative therapies, why don't we just create a place where they can go, where they can get those?
Yeah, I mean, well, to circle back on like what are we doing, and what can we do in DC? I mean, there's DAV, VFW, some of them old VSOs. Like you might not want to go hang out in the post, but they do some really good legislative work. If those traditional ones aren't the ones for you, there's other ones, that are doing a lot of work at the federal level. Like that's kind of what I've done in my professional role. I've attached myself, given myself an additional job of, with the National Association of County VSOs, to be their policy director. And so, with that role, I'm able to kind of advocate, take what I'm learning in LA and California, and be a voice in DC. So, finding those advocacy groups and attaching yourself to that, making trips out to DC and just walking the halls and talking to members. There's also, you can do online public comment. That's one thing that I don't see enough veterans do is participate in the public comment portion. I mean, the federal government opens certain issues for 30, 90, 180 days for public comment. So that's a period where we can get in there and actually put stuff into public record. And then in the future, as you're doing work, you can cite that that public comment that you or other veterans that made part of public comment. Like, look, this isn't new. I'm not bringing this new to you in 2026. A group of us came, put a bunch of remarks in the Federal Registry in 2021 around this issue, and there just hasn't been anything. And that's why we showed up at your doorstep in 2026 saying like, hey, it's still, nothing has moved and it's been 5 years. What are we going to do about it? And then to your point, John, I mean, we, in the state of California, we have what's called the Behavioral Health Service Act. That's about $4 billion worth of tax revenue on the top 1% to meet the behavioral health needs of all residents in California. And so making sure, like, really kind of my job and my buddy's job in the California Association of County VSOs, we're just up in Sacramento making noise. We just had the governor sign Senate Bill 694 that keeps this week, keeping veterans from being preyed on by these for-profit companies helping with benefits, where veterans are paying $20,000 to get connected to benefits that them and their families earned while they were in. It just drives us crazy, us veterans that do it for free and do it for the right reasons and not to turn a profit margin. So, we got that done. We got that done. And I'm telling you, I'm laser focused on this Behavioral Health Service Act piece. Like, we have to get a carve out specifically for veterans. That carve out needs to go to CalVet, not administered by another county department that doesn't know veterans or is loosely associated with veterans. We need that money to go directly to the department that's in charge of caring for our state's veterans. And that department's CalVet. And that's my big priority this year, is to get a carve out. So, me and other county veteran service officers, we're able to get those dollars and invest those dollars into behavioral health interventions that our veterans are telling us they want, not what the DSM-5 says we should do or what psychiatrists
No, exactly. Tells us to do. So you and I, Jim, we need to we need to meet, because I need to talk to you about what I'm up to, because it fits in with what you're talking about.
As long as it's no good like usual, John, I'm good. I'm open.
Yeah, my program sucks. We don't do anything. We've only serviced like 40,000 vets over the last 17 years with one suicide. Right, Juan? Yeah. We totally suck.
Well, no, let me explain that. Like, up to no good means stuff that bureaucrats, they see us coming and they're like, oh God, these guys, like, that's what I mean by no good. That's the type of dirt that I like to get involved in.
Well, you know that I'm the king disruptor especially in this space. I want to open it up. We have some other folks here in the town hall that I think have some questions. So I want to start. I always believe ladies first. So we're going to give it up with Jessica. If you want to ask a question for anyone that's here, or Steven especially, go right ahead, unmute yourself and have at it.
Well, I would just like to say thank you to all that have participated and commented so far. This is an issue that's near and dear to my heart. I am a veteran. I am not a combat veteran. I was in the Air Force. I did not see combat, but I know of people that have and that are struggling with this. And thank you for bringing this to the public's attention. And one thing I would say, just as a layman, putting a veteran or putting a person on a drug that is known to enhance suicidal ideations, knowing that they're already going through this, does not make any sense to me. And if there's a way to correct that, and I believe that veterans should be able to get the help that they need that's going to help them, because everybody's an individual and it's not a one size fits all. And I work for Concerned Veterans for America, and we're trying to get the Veterans Access Act passed, which will have a pilot program allowing veterans in 3 VISNs to go get the mental health and substance abuse care outpatient that they need without a prior authorization. So, I mean, I hope we can get that passed. I think that that might help turn the ship a little. But thank you guys for all that you do.
So,
May I-
so Jessica,
Bring up a point here, John. I think what Jessica said is exactly where I'm looking, because just a quick story about my son. I mentioned to him, he benefited greatly from the neuroplasticity. He was going through those programs like James talked about, where every week he went in and he saw those things, and it was fantastic. But the VA wouldn't pay for it, so I was paying for it. I paid $1,000 a month for him. And after about 4 years, he said, "Dad, I'm well. I'm perfectly normal. You don't have to pay that anymore." He was worried about me putting out, $12,000 a year for his treatment. And I said, "Are you sure, son?" He said, "Yeah, absolutely." So we stopped it. And that's the problem, because if the VA had paid for it, what I'm saying would improve this greatly if the VA would allow the veteran to go wherever he wanted, whatever modality works for him, and pay for it. Why not? They sacrificed their lives for us as veterans. And so why shouldn't it be paid for by TRICARE or whatever kind of insurance? They should pay for neuroplasticity, they should pay for hyperbaric, they should pay for ketamine, whatever the situation that works for the veteran. If they want to stay in the VA, fine. But if they want to get out, and most of them that I've talked to would rather get out of the VA and have these private modalities. So I think what Jessica said is right on spot, Jessica. I think if we could get these other things paid for and get the information to the veterans, then we'd see a lot of benefit.
yeah, there's some other legislation that's working through in terms of informed consent. So the VA has informed consent requirements for opioids, but they don't have it for SSRIs. And so there's legislation going through. I was just in Washington, D.C. on Monday and Tuesday this week. And so it's being opposed by the American Psychiatric Association and the American Psychological Association, but it's being supported by the National Association of Social Workers. So I don't understand why. Informed consent to me is like, it should be a no-brainer, but for some reason it doesn't seem to go.
Hi guys.
Jack?
Yeah, I'm not a veteran, but I come from a family of veterans. My son's a Marine veteran. My dad is a Marine Corps veteran, Vietnam vet. I have an uncle that's still alive, is a Marine Corps Vietnam vet. He would go in the tunnels, so he'd seen some bad stuff. It's interesting what you guys are talking about, the SSRIs. My dad and my uncle, who had severe PTSD, never took these psych drugs and never ever contemplated suicide. And the way they dealt with their issues is talking about it in family. One thing was interesting is I volunteer at the Marine Corps base. I barbecue for Marines, and a higher up came up and we were talking about PTSD. And one thing he said was, it's good for veterans to keep their minds busy, take their minds off the thing. And I kind of noticed that with my dad. He was always keeping himself busy, working, and 2 jobs, and volunteering in the for the Boy Scouts and stuff like that. I have been on SSRIs, Lexapro. I was given medication because several years back I was told I was dying of cancer, which turned out to be a mistake. And what I found being on this medication, it's very hard to get off of.
Yeah.
You go through a very severe withdrawal. I feel like I'm getting electrocuted, and I'm still on it. And I would like to get off of this thing, but this stuff is a very strong toxic chemical. And I've been on different medications before that, and it did make me feel suicidal. And they changed my medication to a dosage where I kind of just feel level, but it kind of numbs me. And but I've tried to get off of it, but it creates I can't, because the withdrawal symptoms are terrible. So I can just imagine what these vets are going through. They're getting thrown medications. You know, my dad died in the VA from poor care. I don't really have nice things to say about the VA. But you know, there are good people there, but I think it needs a lot of work from, like you're saying, the bureaucrats and that. But I'm very grateful for what you guys are doing for our veterans, because they're so important to us. And I have friends who are combat vets who are going through a lot. It's I can never understand what they went through, but it's, you know, I hurt for them, and I wish we can do more. Thank you.
Jack,
Yeah, Jack,
Jack,
what you said is very important. As bad as it is to be.
Hang on, Larry.
Oh, I'm
Hang on,
sorry.
Go ahead, Juan.
oh no, I just wanted to say, yeah, Jack, you hit it on the nail exactly how you feel when you're on those medicine. Because that whole thing when you were like, you feel numb. When you take it, you just feel, I got put on like a couple things, and then there was one that they put you on that was really, really strong. You took it and you wouldn't feel happy or sad. You just feel static.
Right.
You just feel
Yep.
like you're static. Like,
Yep.
and then for some reason, your body, you feel disconnected from your body. And
That's right.
when then you feel like you're not connected. And then that's when you want to commit, you know, the acts and stuff like that. And that part is what gets me, is because then you go back and give them that info and give them that, they all write it down. But then they're like, okay, well, let's try a different cocktail and give
Yeah.
you this. And
Yep.
it's just a lot of trial and error. And there's no, you're telling me with all the veterans that we've had throughout the years, with everybody that's done it, we haven't found something that have worked. It's just a lot of just, oh, well, here, try this. And every single time you get a new pharmacist, oh no, what is it? Larry said the word, the doctor, whatever their names are, psychiatrist. You get a new one that's like, oh, well, you know, we're going to, and then you repeat the process again, because they move you from one to another. And then they might look at your record, but they're like, oh, well, I think we should try this. I think we should try this. I think we should try this. That shouldn't be the answer. That shouldn't be the answer. The answer should be, we should know. And we already have proof of a lot of the things, but they just, and again, yes, I know it's like, it's taking time, this and that, but like, if we've already found it, like, what is taking so long for them to say, hey, we got what these veterans need. We know where they need to go. We know how to help these veterans. Why is it that they're not helping? That's the question I want answered. And that's what I've always been asking. And, you know, I get pushed around a little bit, but it is what it is. I'll leave it at that.
Like I said, like with my uncle and my dad, they went through a lot, and they didn't take those psych drugs, and they dealt with it in a different way, a healthy way, and they healed from it. It took time, it took healing, but they got through it. And the way I see these vets, they're getting poisoned with this stuff, and it's bad stuff. And doctors would tell me, just wean off of it, and I try to, and they just can't do anything for me. And just, they go, well, we don't know why you're still having withdrawals, but it's terrible. The withdrawals are horrible.
Yeah, Jack, I just wanted to bring up a point with you from a medical standpoint. As bad as they are, it's even worse getting off of them, because what they do, and it's a dream product for the pharmaceuticals, because once they get you on it, you're not going to get off. They've got you hooked for life. But don't lose hope. There are specialists out there. And afterwards, I'm going to have John send you some information. There are groups that will help you. It may take 6 months to get off from it, but you can do it with help, with some rescue medications, with some different programs. And once you get off from it, you'll be so happy you did. But you cannot stop cold turkey. That
Nope.
is, they are really, you have what is called these shooting things that go through your brain like you're being shocked. And that happens to a lot of people. And
Yep.
and the suicide ideations come up and increased depression. All the symptoms that you once treated are magnified when you try to get off these drugs, because your brain now is having to readjust the serotonin levels. So there's hope though. So, but don't do it on your own. Make sure you're in the hands of somebody good. I'll help you.
Yeah,
by sending some
I
Yeah,
couple.
appreciate that.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
connect with me, because we have that service as part of our program. Where do you live,
Okay.
Jack?
Right now I live in Mission Viejo, but I'm gonna still work
Perfect.
down here, and I'm moving to Lake Arrowhead.
Well, we have a functional medicine doctor that I'm going to hook you up with. She's in Irvine, and
Okay.
she does a lot of work with our vets, and she'll be able, at least I want you to go see her and get an evaluation, and then she can take it from there.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Yeah. And Antonio, do you have any questions?
Awesome. Well, John, I just want to say thank you for everybody on the call. Dr. Miller, great. My condolences to you and your family. And Steven, hearing you doing this movie is great, because, even Juan, when you're talking, I felt like I was the only one going through stuff like this. I served 12 years in the Marine Corps, did a combat tour overseas, left the Marine Corps as a gunnery sergeant, and I had severe PTSD, depression, leaving the military. And I try to seek for help. And to everybody's point on the call, the first thing that they did is prescribe me tons of medication. And I've never been a guy to take medication, but I wanted to give the VA that opportunity to say, you know what, let me give it a try. Maybe this is help me. But then that's when things got worse for me, and I completely, after taking the medication, I felt worse. I felt like my suicide thoughts kicked up, depression got worse, and I stopped taking the medication. And when Steven was talking about, the mail coming in and hearing like all those medications come in, I would get those packages all the time. I had a drawer that was stuffed with nothing but the medication, and I wouldn't take it. Luckily for me, I was able to find a fellow Marine that was engaged with merging vets with players. So he introduced me to that organization, and I started doing workouts with them, doing things outside of taking any type of medication, and that turned my life completely around, where it brought me back to the person I was before. So hearing all this, it's kind of like crazy, because I've never thought people out that were going through a problem just like I did. And everybody on the call, I feel like it's like, wow, it's really is true what veterans are going through. And for me, medication wasn't it. For me, medication was something that was making me worse, and probably would have put me in a different perspective. And glad that I met these organizations like the Merging Vets with Players, and now with you, JW, just going out to Kings games, being with veterans, that motivates me to continue striving. But definitely, went away from the pills because I thought that wasn't the right way to do it, and I'm glad I did. But thank you everybody on the call for everything you guys have said. It's just phenomenal being on a conversation like this.
Tony, awesome. Dude, I feel you on everything you said. I feel you on everything you said. And if you ever need somebody to talk, if anybody ever needs somebody, you can always hit me up. But dude, yeah, like the whole part of like coming back and then putting you on pills, like, bro, like that never understood. You go there for help, and then the part that they don't understand is like they put you on this stuff, and then you have to fight to get off of it, and then you have to wean off of it, and then you're addicted to this thing, and then you have to then they mess with your body, and they're just like, oh, okay, we're just gonna throw another set of pills, and you're gonna be okay. Like it doesn't work that way.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah.
Imagine they're giving these kind of medications to kids. Tom Cruise was very outspoken. He would go on these talk shows, and he was very outspoken about how much he was against kids getting these things. Can you imagine children being on this stuff? It's happening.
No, it is happening, but we're trying to, at least from what we can do, we're going to try to create an alternative, and that's what I think the direction we need to go in is, because the VA is not going to change. Jim mentioned it. It's like the Titanic. Yeah, it ain't going to turn, and so they would rather sink than turn, and so we have to do it ourselves. And Steven, I definitely want to have some conversation with you offline. I know you have to go here shortly, but your movie resonates. You did such a wonderful job. I mean, I can't even, from the work that I do and have done, and the number of, like, you see some of the vets here today, the way that you told the story resonates so directly to them, as like it speaks to their heart. And like, I can't commend you enough. Like, there's not enough awards in this world, because there's been a lot of movies done on this topic or similar type of topic. I'm sure you've probably seen them all. I don't know if we mentioned 13 Hours. My buddy Jake Rademacher made a documentary years ago with him and his brother that was pretty famous, Brothers at War, that you might have heard of. That was really good. But yours is more, even though it's not strictly commercial, it's the most commercial that hits the right note that I've seen, at least in quite a while. And I want to read you something. There was a lot of vets that couldn't make today's podcast because they were working or whatever it is. But one of them sent me a note that I want to read to you. After seeing the movie, it brought more insight into the things that returning combat vets are going through. They hinted that he suffered from PTSD, but brought to the foresight traumatic brain injury, and more importantly, CTE, and how that affects people. It also features a Vietnam vet and the issues that they went through, and how returning home and the issues that Vietnam vets faced. The key message was the therapist wasn't there to fix the subject in the film, but to present options that perhaps he hadn't tried in the past to help him find his way. So I thought that last part especially kind of speaks to what we're talking about on this podcast today.
Yeah, thank you, John. I'll say this in closing for me. It is my life's greatest honor and privilege to have gone on this endeavor. I'd never. The reason why the film is an unflinching look, that it is so authentic and honest, is because of the men and women that have put on the uniform, and all the mental health workers and Gold Star families and their families had trusted me with their stories. And on a 14-year journey, you can imagine how many times you want to quit, how many roadblocks, unnecessary roadblocks, are put in your way. And those men and women were always my North Star to bring this home. And I sincerely appreciate that, because if there is ever a takeaway that I would want veterans to feel or to see in experiencing the film, is that they matter, and that it is okay to not be okay. But it's taking that next step to in whatever that is, in terms of reaching out to your community and to care and into that support system. And for the civilians that see it, it's, again, as I said, it's not wagging a finger that you haven't done enough. It's enlightening you, and the call to action that, oftentimes in this journey, veterans would say to me, that they always felt that when civilians approached them to say thank you for your service, it always felt like a hollow gesture. And I understood that. And I would argue, well, for a civilian, that could take a lot of courage to walk up to somebody in uniform at an airport and utter those words. What would you prefer? And almost 9 times out of 10, veterans would say, just ask me how I'm doing. And or ask me something about my service. And that's that human connection that I think that I hope Sheepdog is able to spark a conversation and help to bridge that gap. We have so much work to do. Jim, I will sidebar with you for sure. There's so many things that, I'd love to talk about. John, obviously, as well, and Larry. Thank you so much for sharing your son's memory and legacy, and to the veterans and the civilians that have joined us on this call. Again, having the courage to share your stories for other people that will connect with you. It doesn't just have to be a movie. It is your own personal story. And the more you're able to share that, other people will feel seen and heard, and more importantly, not feel alone in their own experience. So with that, I'll just say, because I do have to hop off, I'm so grateful for you to share your platform here, and for everyone to share their stories. It is wind in our collective sails, and we are all in this together, and we are. And just thank you so much. And I look forward to, I have a feeling we'll all be connected in some capacity in the near future to continue on this journey, and band together on it.
Yeah, and before you go, please let everyone, because we've gotten a lot of questions from a lot of people, how did you go to see the movie?
Sure. So you will be able to, you can pre-order Sheepdog right now to own at home, on Apple and on Fandango, and it will be available on all digital platforms like Amazon, Comcast, on February 17th. If you go to our website right now, sheepdogthemovie.com, you can pre-order it. There's several links there. You can see audience reactions. We also have a Fandango merch store. Any of those, any of the profits from the merch goes to VetTix. They're our official partner. If you sign up at vettix.org, you can also be eligible. We're about to do a national campaign to be able to see Sheepdog for free, to own it for free via Fandango. And that campaign, I believe, will start next week. But all the information is at sheepdogthemovie.com. We're very interactive on our Facebook and Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. Find us there. And just know how grateful I am. Thank you all so much. So very much.
Yeah, I really appreciate your time, and we will definitely be speaking in the future. Hopefully near
All right,
future.
you got it.
Amazing.
You got it.
Amazing job, Steven.
God bless.
Thanks, Steven.
Thank you. Thanks.
bless
Thanks,
you, man.
Juan. Thank you. All right.
Thank you,
Take
Steve.
care. Bye-bye.
Jim?
Yeah. What was the question, John?
Well, just whatever you want to say.
Yeah. Well, it's I can't remember who said it earlier, but it really got me thinking. About, we think about medication, we think about treatment, we think about all these different things that we go in and we, to make us better. And it was about the employment, like the investing yourself into work, and using that as a coping mechanism. One of the first things that was told to me when I graduated with my MSW was, the best treatment for PTSD, a job. And I was just like, are you kidding me? Like, I just studied like CBT and all this therapy stuff. You mean a job is the best therapy? And really, there was a lot to that. I wasn't in a place to where I could hear it and understand it, but just fast forward 15, 16 years later, having veterans come to me making $80,000, $90,000 a year in IT, and like willing to work for me when I was at nonprofit for like $35,000 a year, because they just weren't getting any kind of meaning out of their employment. They weren't getting any kind of support. They felt disconnected. Everybody that they were showing up to be productive like they were in the military didn't understand them. They didn't feel part of a community, to Steven's earlier part. And so a piece of the equation that we haven't talked about to this point is really that piece. Like, if a veteran's struggling a lot, we need to have supportive employment opportunities to where, you may not be able to wake up at 8 o'clock every day and get to a job. You may not be able to, work 8 hours a day because you're kind of going through it. You're working on kind of getting yourself back on the feet. But that type of stuff should be like early on, like, and even if you're not employed, volunteer. Like, one thing we're looking at our department is really kind of partnering with some of these organizations out there that go beyond the veteran community. So there's an organization called Foster Warriors, where pairs Navy SEALs with foster youth, and they just learn lessons from each other. And so, just things like that. So like, as we kind of get, these folks in our community, like knocking out of the park, and they got these jobs that are providing for their families, which is, our number one kind of concern is like, we got to be able to support our families. But if that job is not feeding them in any way, shape, or form, they're not getting a sense of community out of it. Like, how can we like make sure that there is access to good, high quality organizations that give back? Yeah, John, I mean, your program, that you brought to me around employing kind of the at-risk youth in construction jobs. I mean, that's and then using veterans to train them up. I mean, that's exactly the name of the game, is like, so, all these alternative therapies are great, but at the end of the day, veterans want to be of service. Veterans want to feel productive. Veterans want to contribute. And if we're not addressing that, then
purpose, we got it in stereo. They need purpose.
Along that line, James, you hit the nail on the head, because when I saw my son's case, they spent years to train him to be an assassin, to be a sniper. When they sent him back to the States, he had a 5-minute questionnaire to reorient him to and so these vets go out and sleep under the bridge when they could be doing something. See, my son said, when I was a sniper, I was doing it for my country and for my family, even though I wasn't a killer at heart. I did it. He was a gentleman. And when he got out, he had nothing to do. So, the point is, there are a lot of things veterans could do. For example, why couldn't they be guards at our schools? They would give their life to save those kids. And just think of it, what a wonderful thing. They know how to use arms. They've been trained, and have them be a guard at the school. Look, all these schools with no guards, and these shooters come in. Wow, wouldn't you like to have a trained veteran there? I would. And I would give them real purpose. It's just one of many things. And purpose is what they need when they come back. They have to find their purpose again, because without a purpose, they're just wandering in the wilderness of self-despair and
so true.
Yeah, we're working, Jim. And again, when you and I need to meet up offline, but we're actually expanding that job training mentorship combination thing. I'll fill you in when we chat. I want to thank everybody for being on today and sharing their stories and asking their questions. I would like to remind everybody to like and subscribe to the Life Aid Hope YouTube channel, where we have tons of great content. You can see some of our previous podcasts and some of our other content that we produce to help inspire and provide hope and purpose, and also social connection. Most of the programs, if not all the programs that we do, are free to veterans. We'll be firing up for the LA County group. The Dodgers season is about to get underway, so we'll be firing that up. And it's all about getting vets out of their house. You can join us March 21st in Newport Beach for our hike, bike, barbecue event, where you can go kayaking, road cycling, and have some fellowship after. And just go to our website, lifeaidhope.org, to get more information on all the things that we're up to. I want to thank Jim. We've known each other for a long time, and the work doesn't go unnoticed. It's tough, especially working for the county, because you have to deal with the bureaucracy, but you're in there rolling up your sleeves and throwing blows. And so that's what we need.
Well, all the veterans on this call and all the veterans in this country are worth it. So I'll go fight some bureaucrats any day for these guys.
Thank you.
Let's go.
Thank you for what you guys do. When I run into vets and combat vets, it's like now I know a place I can tell them about that could help them, and which is good. So thank you for what you guys do.
Now we're going to get you fixed up, Jack. That's going to be one of my first missions. Jessica, you have anything?
Appreciate it.
No, just thank you all for what you're doing.
Yeah. Are you in DC?
I live in the Dayton, Ohio area.
Okay. Yeah, I think I have your information when you registered for this, and I'll definitely reach out to you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, John, for what you're doing. It's amazing how you're putting all these groups together, and especially with the exercise, with the good meals, with all multifaceted. There's not one answer to this problem, but putting it together. I'm really excited about what you're doing, John. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I believe that, Jim talked about it a lot. You have to listen to the people you're trying to help. That's the number one thing. And then, as I always say, finding people to help is not the problem. And so when they come everywhere, every direction, you have to listen to them. And the plan that they need is the plan that they need, not the plan that someone else needs. And I think that's really the key for what we're trying to do at Life Aid, is have that hyper personalization. And we have the technology with the app, but we're developing, as you know, Larry, because you and Juan are both pretty involved in the future. We have something that we think is going to be very exciting for veterans. And at the end of the day, veterans can vote with their feet, and they will. And just like when we started the bike rides with Juan was there in the early days, and we had standing room only at every single event. We never had a problem finding vets that wanted to come and participate, even though they don't really ride bikes, but they just knew that program would help them. So thanks.
Hey, Juan, did you know my buddy Adam Volchek, who was working for me? He John, I know you remember Adam, but did you ever meet Adam?
No, Adam Volchek.
Volchek, yeah, he was a medic.
Where was he at Walter Reed?
I don't think so. No, he was working for me in Hollywood.
Yeah, he mostly did the California Challenge. I don't think you ever did the California Challenge. You mostly did the Virginia Beach and some of the other things.
I was mostly on the East Coast because they wouldn't let me travel all the way out there.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Adam was a cool guy, and he swore by the program too. He always told all the vets
awesome.
The program.
He helped so much. I mean, here's the basic gist of how great this program was. We would get guys like Juan or Adam that were really struggling. They would come out, and Juan already talked about his first event, and he struggled. But then they stick with the program, and then they become mentors for the guys that come in the beginning. And Adam was great at that. He got fit, he got healthy, and then he paid it forward. And Juan did the same thing. And now, like I said, Juan, when he came to the program, he weighed like 350, 360 pounds. And now he weighs what, 205?
204.
204.
Back down to fighting weight, man. Nice work.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. And James, thank you so much for what you're doing in the county and everything. Dude, that's awesome. And how do I start in that sense here? To be able to help in the way you're doing. I would love to just pick your brain in the sense of how do I start that journey? Yeah.
Well, maybe John, we can do something where we get some vets together to just have a conversation around that. Yeah, it's a long story, Juan. I mean, I just was in the right place at the right time. Had people that, and not all of them were vets, but they helped kind of point me in the right direction. And I started the Hollywood Veteran Center, and then was asked to apply to different places because people saw that I was in it for the right reasons, and it landed me here. Yeah, man. I mean, just really kind of like a very hardcore. I'm not like a hardcore dude. I was military intelligence, right? I just but I believed in the military. I believed in my country.
You were in it. My thing is, your story needs to be told to more veterans, so then they inspire. Okay, he's a dude that was in it, and he's doing these things. Because I think that's where we get lost. Because when you go to the VA, all you see is the guys in the VA in the wheelchairs, and you're like, I don't want that.
Yeah,
I don't want to become that. And I think that's the stigma that a lot of guys stay away from the VA, because you see these young guys that come in, and you just see the older guys in the wheelchair, and just and they just live there. They live in the VA. I was just talking to somebody yesterday about it. They live in the VA. They wake up, they go to the VA, they take their pills, and they just sit there. And a lot of the younger guys are like, we don't want to do anything with that. So that's why they tend to just stay away. So I would love to have more veterans listen to your hey, I went through, I did this, and I was able to turn things around, and now I'm pushing it forward. Because I think we all want that purpose. We all want that thing that we're still on mission. We're still helping each other and we're still on mission. And that's the message that we need to put out.
Yeah, it really sums up into three words. It's hope and purpose and community. If you have those three things, and we sort of spell it out in mindset, motivation, and mission, and having those things, propels you forward, and not having those things, hold you back. And so, Juan, we're working on some stuff. So I want to wrap it up. I really appreciate everybody and their participation. Please join us next Thursday. We're going to have part 2 of our longevity conversation with our 2 World War II vets, Bill, Dylan, and Jack. And you can learn all kinds of great stories about service and what America was like post World War II. So join us next Thursday, and we'll talk soon.
See you, John.